Unique Sports, only on YouTube.
Well, thank you for joining us today. Will Murray from Left Field Thinking and I decided we'd sit down after our GB Ireland series and pick a team of the tournament. We wanted to have a look at the series as what it means in terms of prep for the Olympics and what we've learned about both teams. Haven't had a chance to watch these three games that usually would be behind closed doors. Will, thanks for being with us today.
Hi, good to be here.
So, Will, looking back at the series, what were some of your big takeaways? What are you excited about, nervous about, having seen GB play over the last three games?
Yeah, I mean, well, as you say, firstly, it was great to have some hockey on telly and great for us to be able to connect with coaches while that was on. So that was a real takeaway, and I think possibly something I'd like to do again because I think everyone enjoyed it. So that was great. Takeaways. Ireland got a lot stronger as the series went on. I think initially, with both teams had spoken about how they were trying to be more attacking in the build-up to it. And the first game was just frenetic. It was gung-ho, end to end. There was no sense of control. And as much as that was really exciting to watch, despite the fact the quality was probably relatively low in game one, I don't think it will have been comfortable for either set's coaching staff or really where they wanted to be, to be honest. So it was obvious there's a style change coming out from both teams that they want to be more aggressive with the ball. But the balance of that changed. And I think over the course of the series, as the personnel changed for Ireland, with some really key players that we'll probably touch on later coming back into the team, I thought their ability to play a direct high tempo of attack, but also have more control of the game was really evident. And they just seemed to be a bit more savvy in possession compared to GB, who were probably a little bit one-dimensional, actually, and certainly struggled against a more congested defence when Ireland decided to shut up shop.
So over the course of the three games we had, GB got the win on in game one on Saturday. Ireland came back, got the win on Sunday. And today Ireland were leading with about 4 minutes to go and GB equalized. Who do you think is going to be the happier set of coaches coming away from the weekend?
I think the result on Sunday, so game two, was probably really important for Ireland more than anything else across the series. I think, there's a lot to be said. People coming in, GB are the reigning Olympic champions. It's a pretty different team, to be brutally honest, with the real key players from that Rio team, with the likes of the two Richardson Walshes, Alex Danson, Krista Cullen, Georgie Twigg, big players stripped away from the team. So yes, GB are Olympic champions, and that's a big scalp for Ireland to take, but realistically, they're not. It's a very different side. So I think Ireland will probably be more happy, but I also don't think Britain will be too disappointed. I think going into the series, given what the desired outcomes are for a 3-game uncapped test series. The difference is obviously it was very mainstream media because it was on telly, so that maybe adds a little bit of spice to it. But I think Ireland will be the happier, but I don't think GB will be that affected.
I think both teams, though, will come away thinking maybe they left a few goals on the pitch and that they can't really afford to do that once tournament hockey rolls around this summer with the Europeans and the Olympics coming up. That's obviously going to be something they're going to have to make more of their opportunities. But let's get down to business. If you want to go ahead and pull up the team of the series, and we can jump into who we thought were the real standout players. So, Will, obviously we sat down a minute ago and we just took through some of this, but why don't we just start at the back and we'll work our way forward? So, Hinch and goal. What are your thoughts on the kind of battle that's going on within the GB setup for that number one position, and why did we settle on Hinch over McFerrin, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, from a GB point of view, it's quite obvious that Maddie is back and is the number one. There's three really strong goalkeepers in the setup in Hinch, Hesh, and Amy Tennant. All have played uh, recently. So Hinch obviously playing the 3 games this weekend. Hesh has played a lot in the Pro League, as has Amy Tennant. One real big factor here is that all 3 are English. So it's not just the GB shirt these 3 keepers are competing for, it's for the English shirt as well. So when it comes to that Euros, it's still going to be a big fight. But I think Mark Hager this weekend has probably nailed his colours to the mast and gone, Maddie Hinch is the number 1. You've got to get ahead of her. And I think that's going to be very hard. She'd been a bit shaky probably after Rio at times, but I mean, today in particular, so the 3rd game of the series, she made some world-class saves and I think looked much sharper.
She had a big save yesterday too with that counter-attack from Ireland, breaking from a corner, came across to Colvin at the back post, and Hinch was able to come across and make a big one, which that's what you need in a goalkeeper like that, to be able to make those big moment saves. Obviously, McFerrin is definitely up there as one of the best keepers in the world, but Hinch played all 3 games, looked very good in all 3, and I think that would be a situation I wouldn't want to be in as a coach, trying to decide between Hinch and McFerrin. That would be a tough one, but I think we did get the opportunity to see 2 of the best keepers in the world right now eke it out, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. And that was probably the most contentious selection that I would say we've made in this team, was Hinch or McFerrin. We saw goals conceded by the Irish team in terms of day one, that big pass played through to Sarah Robertson. If McFerrin's on the pitch, is that Irish team more organised? Does that goal go in? Who knows? I think one big thing that we can say is Hinch had more to do, not just because she was in goal the whole time, but actually because the Irish deep defence and circle defence was so much better than the English, the British team. Sorry. So is that McFerrin's organisation of the Irish deep defence? I don't know. But for me, shot by shot basis, Maddie edged it this weekend.
Well, speaking of that Irish deep defence, we've got 2 Irish defenders in our back 3 here with Tyson Upton and then Toman joining them from GB. I think Upton was, for me, the standout player of the series. Really kind of, I said this to you a minute ago, I think she really was a differentiator for Ireland, and someone who I think is going to be really important for them moving into the summer. I was texting a friend of mine during the 3rd game today, and I said, I think that she has really kind of given herself the opportunity to be seen as an international superstar within the world of hockey, like a real big time player. But Tice's impact in the games on Sunday and today was huge. She really did help to sturdy or make things a bit sturdier, settle things down, and just really contributed in a large way to that Irish deep defense, like you mentioned. What about Toman? Tell me a little bit about your thoughts there.
Yeah, fabulous on game 1. We spoke a lot, and we will, I'm sure, about Owsley being a superb player and a real pivotal player for GB, but Toman for me is up there and similarly crucial. When we were talking on Pass on Saturday, we spoke about Anna Toman as player of the match. Give her the ball in all sorts of situations and ramp up the pressure on her, and she's still able to get forward outcome in possession, and was consequently really disruptive to Ireland's high pressing style, and allowed Britain to penetrate through quite a lot of pressure. Equally, she's fantastic defensively, brilliant athlete, and just really calm. Like a stick dexterity in defense is fabulous. So for me, was the standout. I think across the series, the Irish backline outperformed the British backline, both with the ball and without the ball. But Toman was exceptional, I think. And shame she didn't play in game 3. But actually, in game 3, we saw Costello come in, who also looked really good, actually. So that is something to think about moving forward, where those two play.
Someone who really, I will be honest, I'll hold my hand up and say I didn't know much about coming into the series was Crackles. Then you give us a great kind of insight into her both in the lead up and in our session on Sunday. And I thought today she was everywhere. She was making some big tackles, really important on the ball. And as one of those kind of emerging stars for GB coming into the series with just 4 caps, I thought she played with, she had the impact of someone with a lot more experience, especially in a side that, like we talked about earlier, is the reigning Olympic champion. To be probably one of the least capped players and be making such a big impact is really, really kind of a sign of what's to come for her.
Yeah,
She's someone that
I
I
think
think
when you
we're going to see a lot from.
Yes, yeah, sorry. I think when you talk about Rasheen Upton emerging as, one of the best players in the world, Fiona Crackles is going to be that as well. She's going to be a global superstar, I think. For a long time, from a very young age in England, she's been spoken about as the next big thing. And the delay in this Olympics has been a brilliant opportunity for her personally. She's gone into the centralised programme. There were so many people injured in those autumn Pro League matches, the four matches against Holland and Belgium, where she makes her debut. Because of all those players missing, she gets a call up from the EDP. Game 4, she grows and grows and grows. Game 4 is the player of the match there, and I think you've seen that progression again this weekend. Ireland probably tougher than Belgium, to be honest, certainly in games 2 and 3. But also the GB team is much more competitive in terms of the personalities and the personnel that are there. The big names are back, and she's today was arguably Britain's best player. She allows them to play in different ways, and I think we look at different people that are going to benefit from her. Her athleticism allows her to cover a much bigger area in that screen spare role than others. She's quick and she's got long legs, so she can cover a large area of turf. You look at Laura Unsworth, who seems to be a completely different player with Crackles alongside her. And you're talking about someone who's won 2 Olympic medals, emerging as a different type of player. She's been liberated by Crackles. And I think it's really exciting to see this happening, and what a summer for her that it's going to be. Like Pro League, Euros, Olympics, and I would say she's in a really good position to play all of those.
Well, that was
great series.
A ringing endorsement of Crackles. When we watched the game Sunday, Watkins was a real standout player for you. I was going to say, why don't you delve a little deeper there as to what it was that made Watkins such a must-have in this squad?
I think I first really, watching the Irish in the World Cup a couple of years ago, Watkins was fantastic. Going toe-to-toe with the best central midfielders in Europe. She was a real key figure. Her not being present on Saturday was, to me, a bit of a surprise. Obviously, they're doing a bit of rotation. And I just thought in that Saturday game, we spoke about the lack of control from either team. There's someone who immediately poses a bigger threat in the heart of the pitch. Player on Sunday, and that space in behind the British press, where Unsworth was operating, where on day 1, Britain was totally dominant. Day 2, with Watkins in there, immediately the Irish have got a foothold in the game and a foothold in midfield that they're able to play into. She's strong and she's direct. And obviously, you add Upton in alongside her, and she scores that goal in the second half of game 2. And again, you look at players, we talked about, if I was in charge of a hoof classic team, I'd be trying to get Upton in, but I'd also be looking at Chloe Watkins, and great player.
Someone who really caught my eye over the weekend was McCallan. I thought her hands in the build-up to one of Britain's goals was just something special. Really doing the hard work to sell the Irish defence on a lie, and then create space for her teammates. And we saw that kind of off and on again over throughout the weekend. This ability on ball. You'd spoken to me a little bit about her background, how she had this kind of great education in hockey, having played in the Netherlands, and I think she was someone that really came alive for me this weekend. But combining her with Unsworth and Owsley, like, what do you think the impact of that group is going to be for GB, or was for let's say Owsley and Unsworth over the weekend? What are your thoughts on those two?
Yeah, I think in the same way that maybe Britain was shaky up front and at the back, the midfield I thought in all three games were pretty dominant. Certainly, it highlights the strength of how they play on the counter and how they play fast give and go unit play. They're good in there.
That was
The other
something
ends of the pitch.
that Sarah Kelleher really paid a lot of attention to when we sat with her on Sunday, was that efficiency of the GB unit play. It's definitely something that was noticeable.
Yeah, and it's something that for years we've hammered at junior level. We're still not the best in either circle, but between the two 23s, amazingly, we can play hockey. Um, Callan is she's quite understated as a person for someone who's got really high end technical skills. You know, she went to Repton for 2 years. She played in the Netherlands in a key development part of her life. She goes and wins in the gold medal, but isn't one of the stars of the team. She's technically really good and is a great cog. I think the big thing for me over the weekend was that you can see she's emerging as a leader in the group. That, as you say, that moment where she completely opened the middle of the pitch up just with a little shimmy, a little bit of a dummy, creating the goal was fantastic. Do you want me to say something else?
Oh, I asked you to talk about Unsworth and Owsley.
Oh, Evan Owsley. Well, we spoke about Unsworth as well. Like, she's allowed to play forward more. She reads the game really well, but a big thing again, efficiency in terms of what she's doing with the ball. So pass, carry, off the ball movement, really sharp, and she just provides the tempo. The other brilliant thing about Laura Unsworth is obviously she's played in defence a lot. So if someone from deep wants to break forward, the likes of Toman, or maybe, you know, we even saw Holly Purd break through midfield with a carry. Unsworth is with it enough and certainly able to drop in and cover. So her playing in the heart of midfield and actually being higher up now than she has done previously just gives the British team much more fluidity in their shapes that they can occupy. Her goal was fantastic as well, that like late lead, Frank Lampard-esque late lead to get on the ball and deflect it. Owsley is, we spoke about her a lot in the build-up. We spoke about her a lot on Saturday. We spoke about her a lot on Sunday, where maybe she wasn't at her best. But today, in game 3, she was phenomenal. She's so quick. Her hands look electric. And she is the key player in the British team. If they're going to have any success over the course of this year, a lot of it is going to come down to Lily Owsley's ability to penetrate and to create these hard attacking unit play sort of moments. And you just see, like, when she gets into the circle, if 3 defenders around her, she was getting outcome of corners, forcing a lot of fouls off people. The Irish were very physical, trying to deal with her. And I think actually today in game 3, there was a lot of what I thought were deliberate breakdowns when Owsley had the ball in that final 23. That on another day could have been 3 or 4 penalty corners, as they would be seen more simply by the umpires. So yeah, I just think we were not short of people to put in this midfield unit. Hence, we've got 5. But I thought over the course of the 3 games, we both probably agreed that midfield probably dominated, and Owsley was arguably, you know, you talk about Rashid Upton player of the season, Owsley's probably up there as well with that sort of title.
Definitely a lot of
in the mix.
strong players in this series now, as we talk about these potential impact on the future of world hockey, and we've got a couple on each line, which is fantastic. O'Flanagan was one that stood out for you up front. I thought she was almost ever present for Ireland. Anytime she was on or near ball, in the attacking half of the pitch, there was a real desire to take it and go and to really just be direct, which has obviously been a focus of the Irish squad, trying to add that more um, directness to their play and to be a little bit more offensively minded. Similarly, she was ever present in their press, constantly hassling and harrying the GB defenders. She had kind of a tough task at times where she was tasked with trying to split the field and come from right into the center and prevent that ball out to left back, which oftentimes left her doing a lot of hard work for no reward. But I thought she had a great series up front for Ireland and was someone that definitely your eyes were drawn to too.
Yeah, I think with and without the ball, she kind of personifies this antipodean approach of dancer. You know, go front on. You don't back away, don't play counter. You are just going toe to toe the whole time. And I thought she was exceptional, actually. Not a series for forwards, if we're brutally honest. I think we'll look at what happens in the circles, but O'Flanahan was fantastic with and without the ball and really set the tone from the very start of game one in terms of how the Irish were going to play, both in the series, but also probably from now on. They're going to go toe to toe with teams. They're going to press you aggressively. They're going to be in your face and compete for everything. And she sums that up. And it's not to say, you know, she's just a hustle and bustle player. She's a quality hockey player. But I just think her attitude, as anything else, really set the tone for the Irish team.
Someone else that leapt out to us was Michelle Carey. In the build up to the series, she was one that was kind of earmarked as a player for the future for Ireland. And she's someone I got to watch a lot at junior level, but hadn't had the chance to see play at the senior international level yet. The ability of her to receive, to beat lines with the receptions, and then to carry and to take people on was fantastic. Again, acknowledging this change in style for the Irish women's team, like that's a big factor, and that ability to just take it and run with it is going to be huge. So I thought she was really deserving of that place. There were a couple others in the Irish squad that could have probably, you know, come close. Hawkshaw was another one that stood out for the same reasons for me, that ability to take it and run with it, which has been missing in Irish hockey for a bit. So overall, though, I thought quite a balanced series, but we've put Sean Dancer as the coach of the squad. Very much a student becomes a master moment this weekend, it felt. What are your thoughts there?
I think if you were to look at, we've spoken about impact of players. If you to be really honest and look at who's had the greatest impact so far with the squads, Dancer seems to have stamped a style that quite different for the Irish very, very quickly, and seems to certainly have taken the players with him. That's not to say that Mark Hager hasn't, but I think just the impact, there's a noticeable impact there that Dancer's had immediately. Yeah, I think that a lot of the focus, when we spoke to Fiona Crackles in the week, a lot of the focus of the British build-up has been around what's happening in the circle, and that I will be fairly certain after this series will still be a focus, because you talk about efficiency, we probably weren't efficient in the circle. 23 to 23, we were pretty strong, but actually I would say that's generally a strength of the British game anyway, and certainly what we would work on at junior level regularly. So for me, Dancer stands out because he's made his mark on that team, and they're really going with it.
Just looking at the squads in general here, obviously Ireland coming out of 2018 World Cup silver medalists. You got Tice, Upton, Watkins, O'Flanagan would have been key members of that squad. You mentioned the number of Olympic gold medalists that were kind of standout players for GB. Are Crackles and Carey really the two big names to watch out for in the future for both these squads?
Well, I think yes and no, because I think that would, to a certain extent, write off certain players. I mean, Owsley's still pretty young, as is Anna Toman. You know, they're going to be around for at least Paris cycle. maybe even LA, depends on how enthusiastic they are, I suppose. But yeah, I think the interesting thing is over the last 12 months, and probably as a consequence of a delayed Olympics, both these squads are trying to blood youngsters. When we spoke to Passmore in the build-up to this weekend's games, he was talking about Junior World Cup coming up, also possibly other qualifiers that are going to come up that young players are going to have to play in. So both squads probably recognising that. There's very much with GB a changing of the guard, and I think what you can see here is, yes, there were lots of Olympic gold medalists playing for Britain, but also those that are having the impact of the game. Toman and Crackles weren't in that core. Hinch, Owsley, Unsworth, McCallan have all got a gold medal around their neck, but other people that have that are not as dominant. You know, this, as I said earlier, this British team has changed significantly since Rio, and they need that experience, but they also need other people to step up and fill the squad out, and not just as sort of place takers, but actually chance takers, and really own the game. Otherwise, they're going to struggle, particularly in Tokyo. In that group that Ireland and GB are in Tokyo is going to be very tough to get out of.
Well, Will, I think that's a great summation of who we thought were the key players to watch out for. All in all, great weekend or a couple of days of hockey. It's been a pleasure having these conversations with you and getting to delve into them a little bit. Well, thanks a million for the chat.
Pleasure as ever.